Jeff, I love that it's warming up outside. It feels like spring is finally here.
Yeah.
It's a great time to hit the beach.
Yeah, I agree. It feels so good to be back by the ocean here at Penfield Beach in Fairfield, Connecticut.
Now, why do I get a feeling this is too nice of a spot for us to stay here for very long?
Because that's not what we do, Ray. We like to get in the muck.
And why are we walking towards that rowboat by the water?
Yeah, that's because we need it to reach our destination just about a mile out that way.
Okay, well, I see a lighthouse on a tiny island.
And that's where we're heading, the Penfield Reef Lighthouse, because they say it's haunted. Hello, I'm Jeff Belanger.
And I'm Ray Auger. Welcome to episode 246 of the New England Legends podcast. If you give us about 10 minutes, we'll give you something strange to talk about today.
Thank you so much for joining us on our mission to chronicle every legend in New England, one story at a time. We do that through this weekly podcast, of course, through the New England Legends television series that you can watch right now on Amazon Prime, through our super secret Facebook group that you can join, if you can find it, and our free New England Legends smartphone app that you can download right now. We are a community of legend seekers, and we're glad you're with us. Don't forget to keep listening at the end of the story for After the Legend, where Ray and I take a deeper dive into this week's story, and sometimes, frankly, we go on tangents.
Us? Never, Jeff.
Of course not.
Now, before we go searching for the ghost of Penfield Reef Lighthouse, we want to take just a minute to thank our Patreon patrons.
Our Patreon patrons are an amazing group of insiders. Not only do they get early access to new episodes, plus bonus episodes and content, they get to be the first to hear all of our news, new ideas, and they get samples of new projects that we're working on.
The costs of producing this show have grown over the years. There's hosting and production costs, plus marketing and promotion. Our Patreon patrons keep us going and growing.
We'd love to have your support and help. Just head over to patreon.com/New England Legends to sign up.
All right, Jeff, so we're taking a rowboat a mile out into the ocean to get to Penfield Reef Lighthouse?
Yeah, we are. We're going old school today. And considering the seas are relatively calm, it shouldn't take us too long to get out to the lighthouse.
I can see the lighthouse. It's really pretty.
Yeah.
It sits on a tiny island made up of a pile of boulders. The lighthouse building is a square, two-story stone house perched on a round foundation with the actual light sitting on the top of the house. There's pretty much no land here to walk on. You're either in the house or you're on the rocks.
Yeah, so the lighthouse was built in 1874 at a cost of $55,000, and it's one of the last offshore masonry lights. Most lighthouses built after this one were cast iron. Penfield Light is well placed, too, because this can be one of the most treacherous pieces of water in western Long Island Sound.
And they say it's haunted?
They do. I mean, so many lighthouses have haunted reputations. If you think about it, this can be a pretty boring job, but it's also a critical one. People's lives and cargo depend on this light staying lit at night and in bad weather. Now, on calm, clear days like today, this job is boring. But when the seas turn rough, you risk your life here. So let's head back to the winter of 1916 and meet the lighthouse keepers.
It's December of 1916, and we're standing in front of Penfield Reef Lighthouse. The two people stationed here at the moment are Keeper Frederick Jordan and Assistant Keeper Rudolph Eiton. Their job is to tend to the light during storms and at night and maintain the facility. Given this tiny island is just a pile of rocks, there's not much else to do here. It's not like you can go for walks or anything like that. A lot of downtime.
Definitely. Now, plus, it's a lonely life, especially for 38-year-old Jordan, whose family's on the mainland in Port Jefferson, Long Island. He hasn't seen them for weeks because a series of storms has made it impossible for him to take the small dory boat to the shore in Bridgeport, Connecticut, where he can catch a ferry over to Long Island to see his wife and two children. In his downtime, Frederick's been making some small handmade gifts as Christmas presents. As December wears on, he's eager to get off this tiny island and celebrate the holidays with his family.
Each man takes shifts at the lighthouse, and each time it's been Frederick's turn for shore leave, the weather hasn't cooperated. The morning of December 22nd looks promising. It's bitterly cold, and the seas are a little rougher than Frederick would like. But he's determined to get home with his homemade gifts and see his family for Christmas. It's just after 1 p.m. when Frederick sets off in one of the island's dory boats. He's rowing for Bridgeport, about 2 miles away. He's aiming for the docks at the foot of Fairfield Avenue.
Now, the dory's about 18 feet long. It's basically a rowboat made for the ocean with high sides, a flat bottom, and a really sharp bow. The ocean swells are a little large, but he's not thinking about the ocean right now. He's rowing for shore and thinking about his family. And if he can pull the oars at a good pace, he can cover that 2 miles in maybe 30, 40 minutes.
Frederick is rowing only a few minutes into his journey when the waters start to churn. Out of nowhere, a gale-force wind whips up, sending swells and waves towards Frederick's dory. Frederick looks up in horror as a huge wave crests and then breaks right on top of him. Frederick is thrown from his boat into the icy waters of Long Island Sound.
Back at Penfield Reef Lighthouse, Assistant Keeper Rudolph sees the whole thing. He's horrified to see how quickly Frederick's dory is being pushed away from him. Rudolph knows he only has minutes to act if he's going to save his friend's life. He runs to the small dock where they have a second dory boat. He heaves the boat into the water and jumps in. Rudolph is rowing as fast as he can to save his friend, but the winds are blowing him back toward the jagged rocks of the lighthouse. Already, Frederick's been pushed almost a half mile away from shore by the wind and driving surf. Rudolph tries again to row against the storm, but now it's clear his own life is in danger. And Rudolph has no choice but to get his dory back to the safety of the lighthouse. He can only watch helplessly as Frederick slips out of sight.
Frederick Jordan's body washes up on shore a mile up the coast. An investigation rules that Rudolph Eichen was not at fault for failing his rescue attempts, and Frederick's family lays his body to rest in Long Island. That should be the end of the story, but it's not.
Weeks go by. Rudolph Eichen has been promoted to head lighthouse keeper at Penfield Reef Light. He's shaken, but still, he's got his duties to perform. But inside the lighthouse, he's uneasy. It always seems to feel cold now. And then Rudolph notices something in the doorway of Frederick's former quarters.
Look, it's a hazy mist floating by the door.
That's so strange.
One afternoon, Rudolph walks into the lighthouse and finds the keeper's journal on the floor. He knows he left the journal on the shelf where it's always placed when you're not making an entry. But there it is on the floor, lying wide open.
Oh, wow. Hey, look at that.
What?
The keeper's journal is open to December 22nd.
Oh.
And there's the last entry Frederick Jordan entered into the book. All right, Rudolph Eichen is creeped out. He's also now seeing that misty figure up near the entrance to the light tower. It would seem this lighthouse is haunted.
Well, not just the lighthouse. The nearby waters also started to attract attention. Years later, a yacht was attempting to navigate some rough weather and waters. The captain wasn't sure of the location of the reef when suddenly he sees a man in a rowboat guiding him through the channel to calmer waters. As soon as the seas calm down, the captain looks up, only to find the rowboat is nowhere to be seen.
Now, from here, we jump ahead to 1942, when a couple of young men are fishing in their rowboat near Penfield Reef Lighthouse. Watching their fishing lines instead of the ocean, a large swell suddenly capsizes the boat. The boys swim to the surface, trying to get their bearings, when a man standing on the edge of the Penfield Reef Lighthouse rocks calls out to them. He directs them to the safest place to swim to the tiny island. Now, when the boys pull themselves safely onto the rocks, they make their way to the lighthouse building to dry off and to thank the keeper who helped them. But once inside, they're told there's no keeper here that matches the description of the man they saw. And that's when the boys glance at a photo on the wall inside the lighthouse. It's a photo of Frederick Jordan. One of the men points to the photo and says, "That's the guy we saw." And that brings us back to today.
Wow, I just got a chill.
Yeah, I know, right?
Why does it feel like every lighthouse is haunted?
Well, we've covered quite a few haunted lighthouses over the years.
We have. I looked it up. Ready?
Yeah, okay.
There's Seguin Island Lighthouse in Maine, Matinicus Rock Lighthouse, also in Maine, Stratford Point Lighthouse in Connecticut,
Right.
Rose Island Lighthouse in Rhode Island, Bass Harbor Light in Maine, Newport Harbor Lighthouse in Rhode Island, and there have been others as well.
So running a lighthouse is one of those jobs where the routine is almost like an assembly line. I mean, you do the same tasks every day, over and over. Once in a while, the adrenaline gets pumping, when there's a bad storm or a ship in peril. It takes a special kind of person to be a lighthouse keeper, one bound by duty to protect his little corner of the ocean.
Maybe that's why some lighthouse keepers, like Frederick Jordan, continue to perform their duties long after they're gone.
sometimes that's exactly what a ghost is. It's like a movie that plays over and over, and only some of us can see it.
And that takes us to After the Legend, where Jeff and I take a deeper dive into the story.
And we're thrilled to announce that After the Legend is brought to you by our newest sponsor, Seaside Shadows.
Woohoo!
If you've listened to even one episode of New England Legends, you know we love history and haunts.
Absolutely.
And so does Seaside Shadows. They offer a blend of history and mystery on their guided tours of southern New England, and we can't think of a better way to walk into a community's past than through its ghostly tales. Seaside Shadows takes you there.
Joining us this week from Seaside Shadows to tell us about a mystic Connecticut haunt is company founder, author, historian, and storyteller Courtney Reardon.
Hey, Ray and Jeff. Thanks for having me. I'd have to say one of my favorite haunts in Mystic is the Captain Daniel Packer Inn. The inn calls itself home to several resident spirits, including a little girl named Ada Clift, who perished there in the 19th century of scarlet fever. Staff and visitors alike have reported hearing her giggles and watching her play pranks. Several have seen her in her full human form, a full-bodied apparition, if you will, in colonial dress, interacting with those in the establishment. Some even think she's alive.
Ooh, Ray, this sounds like a place we have to check out.
Then Seaside Shadows would be the people to take us there. Head to seasideshadows.com to learn all about their walking tours, virtual tours that you can take online right now. Plus, they offer private tours and events, including murder mystery dinners, pub crawls, special investigations, and more.
Seasideshadows.com is the place to find out about all their upcoming events, tours, and you can book your experience right online. Head over to seasideshadows.com to start your tour of local legends, lore, and true history. All right, Ray.
Lighthouses.
Lighthouses. Scary, right?
Ocean. The ocean's scary.
The ocean is scary.
I don't go into the ocean just because of fish and sharks
like
and all
fish,
that.
right?
No.
Right.
Never mind ghosts.
And I get the sense, like, if you're in the ocean, you'd hear the Jaws theme in your head almost immediately.
Absolutely.
Like,
the same way I hear
like,
the Psycho theme in the shower.
That's why. That's that smell. That makes sense now. So I was thinking about Frederick Jordan in the ocean, and just so people understand, because, like, you know, we start with a nice day at the beach, and here we are, and you're like, oh, some people like to swim in the ocean,
right?
Obviously. But the thing is, in December, on a cold day, hypothermia can set in like 15 minutes.
Wow.
So the second you go in the water, the clock's ticking. And Frederick Jordan would have known that, right? He would have known, like, I have minutes. I mean, you're a lighthouse keeper.
He knows.
Absolutely. Yeah. He would know. And so what happens is that, you know, your extremities just start to not function very well.
Right.
And if you can't move your arms or your legs in like 15 minutes, you start to sink. And then that's why drowning. I mean, if you're outside in the cold and hypothermia, it takes longer because you can move around, you can breathe, you're not in danger of drowning. But so when you can't paddle and the ocean's rocking and rolling, I mean, it's minutes.
I think we've all been in a pool where it's maybe 60 degrees, but you get to a point where your arms aren't functioning like that, and you're like, I got to get out.
That's
I'm
hypothermia,
so cold.
right? It's a start, yeah.
But imagine being in icy cold temperatures in the ocean with the waves crashing on you,
and you're watching your dory boat like drifting away so fast that you know you're never going to swim to catch it.
You lose your bearings at some point,
and your only hope is that your partner can get his dory boat to you like that fast, right? And so if he was 10 minutes away from the lighthouse, it's going to take his partner 10, 12 minutes to get there too, even if he could get there. And even if Eiton had made it, there's no telling that, you know, because he was drifting quickly down the coast. It's just a tragic tale. But so many lighthouses have their ghostly tales tied to them. Rose Island Lighthouse, which is a really cute little island right off Rhode Island, right off of Newport. If you're driving on the Newport Bridge, you can actually look out and see it when you're going into Newport. Yeah. It's on the right there, and there's a little lighthouse.
I've seen it.
Yeah, it's right across the water from Fort Adams.
Yeah.
Big Fort Adams.
Haunted. It has to be.
Both.
They're all haunted.
All haunted. The thing about Rose Island Light, and we did this on the television series, the New England Legends television series, it was also a quarantine station for during the cholera epidemic. So people from Newport were brought to this island to try to contain,
die.
Yeah, to die.
Basically.
There's mass graves out there.
Wow.
And then you add the lighthouse, which pretty light, you know, in a house, but that's an island too. So the lighthouse keepers would have been out there with their families. And you're only, you know, a mile, so is Penfield Light, but you're only a mile from the shore, And they'd have gardens that they grew their own food out there and things like that. So there was stuff to do.
Sure.
Not a lot.
Not on this island that we just talked about.
On this island, nothing. You can't even go for a stroll. You can go from a stroll from like the kitchen to your bedroom.
Yeah, maybe up and down the stairs.
That's it.
Get your exercise in that way.
Like it's just a pile of rocks and a house. And I mean, imagine being stationed there for weeks.
With someone else. There's a movie, I don't know if you saw it, Robert Pattinson,
yeah.
And Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe, yep.
It's a creepy movie.
It's in black and white, yeah.
It's in black and white. It's more of solitude, and they go mad, or Willem Dafoe's character goes mad.
Right.
Not so much a ghost story, but still very haunting, that movie.
And again, like the job is so boring, right? Turn the light on, turn the light off, right? Like, polish the brass, paint stuff that needs painting, whatever. But it's so important, right? Like you can't phone that one in. You can't, if it's a storm out there, like you might be up all night making sure the light's on and that ships can see it, because lives are depending on you. And
you mentioned polishing the brass. Not really an important job, but it gives you something to do, so it does become important.
Keeps you occupied.
Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a very tedious life of doing absolutely nothing.
So these folks understand this. Like you're taking this job because you're bound by duty and honor, and you understand the importance of it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be called to this line of work, right? You'd do something else. And so I love the idea that sometimes, like, I know Rose Island, people would see the feet going up the stairs to the light, and then they thought that was a former keeper. And that this lighthouse, too, Penfield Light, you've got people that have reported for years. Obviously, these are all automated now. Yeah. People don't have to live in them anymore to fill oil in fire lamps, right? It's literally electric, and it's maintained by the Coast Guard, the whole thing.
There's some like 90-year-old guy that won't give up his job. Though.
Right, somewhere. I feel like I saw something in the news, like just the last stationed keeper.
Sure.
And what a difference! Some of them are on the mainland, right? You're on on the end of a peninsula. What a night and day difference.
Sure.
Because hey, my shift's over. I'm going home.
I'm going to the bar.
Yeah, I'll go to the bar. Yeah, whatever. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
But out here on Penfield Reef Lighthouse, you are on a tiny little island. You can't go for a jog. Right? You can't go do anything. Yeah. It's just you and solitude and this important task. And the fact that a keeper died just trying to get home for the holidays. It's gut-wrenching.
Sad story.
You can imagine, like, you're a dad, and imagine being like, I know the seas are a little rougher than I would like, but you know what? I'm 30, 40 minutes if I row hard to land, and I'm done, and I'm off for the holidays. You know what I mean? And so you're like, no, I'm going for it.
And he could have waited another 4, 5, 6 hours maybe next day.
That's the problem with the sea, right? You think, like, if I wait a little longer, it'll calm down. If you wait a little longer, it could get worse.
Could get worse, yeah.
And you could be like, I'm not going home. Like, I'm not going to be able to get out of here. And I'll lose the daylight. You only had a few hours of daylight left, and you want to make sure you're safe. And so just literally...
picked the wrong profession. I mean, that's what it comes down to. His fault. Should have went to college.
Should have rolling the dice to get home to your family.
Yeah.
And that haunts us, and I'm sure it haunted every keeper since. Like, it's a reminder, like, hey, I know most days it's just calm seas and boring job, but people die doing this work.
Pay attention.
Yeah, pay attention and keep yourself alert. And I think that life of solitude, I mean, we've seen The Shining.
Oh my God, yeah.
You're just like, all work and no play makes Frederick a dull boy, right? Like,
well, that was another thing. I mean, he had the whole hotel inside to run around and exercise, but you couldn't go outside. You couldn't do anything. Solitude.
Confinement. Some people are fine with it. Some people are not, and that's what gets us.
We'd like to thank our new sponsor, Seaside Shadows.
Yes, thank you.
We'd like to thank our Patreon patrons, and our theme music is by John Judd.
Until next time, remember,
the bazaar is closer than you think.